All right, so today we are reading the story of The Raft. Can you guys say that? Raft. Your turn. Raft. Good job. Good job. And this story is about a little boy named Nicky and his grandma. All right? So here we go. The Raft. All right. There's nobody to play with, I complained. She doesn't even have a TV. Dad grinned. Well, she's not your normal kind of grandma, I guess, he said. Calls herself a river rat. He chuckled. But I promise she'll find plenty for you to do. And you know, I can't take you with me this summer, Nicky. There'll be no kids there, and I'll be spending all my time at the plant. I felt tears starting again, but I blinked hard and I looked out the window. So there's Nicky. He's looking out the window. And how do you think he feels? Can you see his face? Feels kind of sad. Yeah. Sad. That afternoon, I stood in Grandma's yard and watched my dad drive away. Dust rose up behind our car as it disappeared into the pines. Well, we can't stand here all summer, said Grandma. Come on, Nicky, it's time for supper. So here we have Grandma. She's waving goodbye to Dad as he drives away. See her? And there's Nicky. And he still looks kind of sad, don't you think? Sad. Honey or maple syrup on your cornbread? Asked Grandma. All right, and here, a picture of maple syrup. Do you guys like maple syrup? Have you tried it? It's very good. It's very sweet. Pour it onto things. Can you say maple syrup? Your turn. Maple syrup. Good job. All right, honey or maple syrup on your cornbread? I don't like maple syrup, I mumbled, poking my finger into the syrup pitcher when she wasn't looking. If you're going to do that, you had better wash up first, she said. She had eyes in the back of her head. Bathrooms through there. I pushed the doorway curtain aside and walked into what would have been a living room in anyone else's house. Books were scattered everywhere. On the tables, on the chairs, even on the floor. 3 of the walls were cluttered with sketches. Here's some sketches. Can you say it? Sketch. Sketch. Good job. So they're little drawings. So the walls were cluttered with sketches and stuffed fish and charts of the river. Several fishing poles hung from the tackle box, a snorkel, and a mask on the floor beneath them. So here we go. We have fishing poles and snorkels and masks. And these are things you use in water, in rivers. It looked like a river rat's workroom. All right, except in the middle of everything was a half-finished carving of a bear. This is a carving where you cut wood. It's a carving, and it was a bear, a big bear, right in the middle. Been carving that old fellow for years, Grandma called from the kitchen. The real one hangs out at the dump. Now come get your supper before I feed it to him. There's Nicky looking at the bear. Dad was right. Grandma found plenty for me to do. In the morning, I stacked firewood, then helped her clean out the rain gutters and changed the spark plugs on her truck. None of those are fun. The afternoon was almost over when she handed me a cane pole, a bobber, and some red worms. Little worms? Yeah, little bugs. "Fish fry tonight," she said, showing me how to bait the hook. "That river's full of bluegills." Bluegills are fish. There's lots of fish. "Drop your line near the lily pads and you'll find them." Down at the dock, I have a picture of a dock. You can walk out onto the river, onto the dock. Down at the dock, I looked things over. The lily pads were too close to shore. There couldn't be fish there. I walked to the end of the dock, threw my line out as far as I could, and then sat down to wait and wait and wait. My bobber never moved. So Nicky's fishing on the dock. He's not catching anything. "There's no fish in this river," I said loud, disgusted. We had hamburgers for supper. So he didn't catch any fish, so they had to eat hamburgers. And there he is. He looks bored, don't you think? Kind of sad and bored. He's sitting on the dock. He's fishing. Right. "Give it another try," said Grandma the next evening. "I'll bet you catch something." Don't count on it, I thought. As I headed back to the dock, so he goes back to the dock, and I threw my line into the water. So he's fishing again. He's fishing on the dock. Then I stretched out on the dock to wait. I must have fallen asleep because I was wakened by a loud chirping and chattering. Chirping and chattering. Noise. I sat up and I looked around. A flock of birds was moving toward me along the river, hovering over something floating in the water. It drifted downstream, closer and closer, until finally it bumped up against the dock. Though it was covered in leaves and brushes, now I could tell that it was a raft. A raft. Can you say it? Yeah, a raft. He found a raft. What was it doing, floating down the river all by itself? I wondered. I reached down and pushed some leaves aside. Beneath them was a drawing of a rabbit. It looked just like those ancient cave paintings I'd seen in books. Just outlines, but wild and fast and free. I cleaned away more leaves, and it was like finding presents under a Christmas tree. A bear and a fox, a raccoon, all with the wild look of the rabbit. Who had drawn them, I wondered? Where had the raft come from? So we saw drawings of raccoons, right? So there was a drawing of the raccoon on the raft. Where did the raft come from? Let's see. There he is. He finds the raft. All right. It's a good story. I ran up to the cottage. Grandma was on the porch reading. "Do you have some rope I can use?" I asked. Some rope? Can you guys, your turn. Rope. Good job, exactly. Some rope. "In the shed, hun," she said. "Help yourself." She didn't ask me what I needed it for, and I decided not to tell her yet. I pushed the raft into the reeds along the river's edge, then tied it to the dock so it wouldn't drift. All the while, birds flew over my head, little birds, every now and then swooping down to the raft as if it were a friend. A crane waded through the reeds to it. A turtle swam up from the bottom of the river. He swam up, like in the water when you swim. The moon had risen yellow over the river by the time I went to the cottage to go to bed. So let's go to bed. All right. I was already down at the dock the next morning when Grandma appeared with a life jacket. You have a life jacket. Do you know what a life jacket is for? It's so that you can float on the river. So you put on the life jacket and then you can float. You can float on the water. Nice. So Grandma appeared with a life jacket and a long pole. A long pole, yeah. She didn't seem surprised by the raft at all, or by the animal pictures all over it. She wasn't surprised. "How did you know?" I started. "Let's go," Grandma interrupted, tossing me the life jacket and stepping onto the raft. She pushed the pole hard into the river bottom, and we moved smoothly into the current. "Your turn," she said after a few minutes. She showed me how to hold the pole and push, and I pulled us to the middle of the river. Even there, the water wasn't over my head, so it was still pretty shallow water. Shallow, yeah, so not deep. We pulled the raft up the river, then let it slowly drift back down. The birds kept us company the whole time, soaring, swooping, singing. Some even landed on the raft and rode with us for a while. Hitchhikers, Grandma called them. All right, there they are on the raft, and there is the long pole. It's very long, very big. All right. After that, I had little time for anything but the raft. I raced through whatever chores there were, then ran down to the dock, wondering what animals I'd see that day. It wasn't just birds that the raft attracted. One morning, 3 raccoons followed me along the shore. You know a raccoon? This is a raccoon. Yeah, it's about this big, and it's a little animal. There were 3 of them. Another time, a turtle climbed on board and spent the morning sunning itself. And one afternoon, I saw a family of foxes slip through the trees along the river. There we go, there's some foxes. You say that? It's a tough one. Yeah. Foxes. Good job, good job. When the weather turned too hot and sticky to sleep indoors, Grandma helped me to put a small tent on the raft. Like a tent that you sleep in. So they put the tent on the raft. I lay on top of the cool sheets and read comic books by flashlight until I fell asleep. One night, a noise woke me up. There in the moonlight stood a huge buck. This big, huge buck. He looked right at me, then lowered his head to drink, as if I wasn't there at all. I found Grandma the next morning working on her bear carving. "Do you have some extra paper I could draw on?" I asked her. She brought out a big sketch pad and a pouch filled with thick pencils and crayons, so things to draw with. "I've been saving these just for you," she said. "Better take these, too." She held out the snorkel and mask. A snorkel and mask. Do you know what that's for? It's so that you can put it on your face and in your mouth to come out, and then you can go underwater and breathe and see things. It's very cool. So she gave these to Nikki. Never know when they might come in handy on a raft. There's Nikki sleeping in his tent. How do you think he feels? Can you see his face? He looks happy now, huh? Happy. Yeah, that's nice. All right. The sun was hot that afternoon, so I pulled into the shade of a willow and then waited to see what the animals the raft would bring. It wasn't long before a great blue heron whooshed down with a crayfish in its bill. Here we have a picture of a heron. It's a very big bird. Yeah, really big. I grabbed a pencil and began to sketch. I felt invisible as the bird calmly ate its lunch right in front of me. Then it preened its feathers, looked back up the river, and flew off. That night, I showed my drawing to Grandma. "Not bad," she said. "Not bad at all." And she tacked it onto the wall on top of one of her own sketches. We talked about sketches before? So little drawings, yeah. There he is. He's sketching the big heron. He looks happy again, don't you think? Yeah, he does. One day, I pulled upriver farther than I had ever been. Near a clump of tall cattails, I startled an otter family. You have an otter? Yeah, right there. It's an otter. And he lives in the water. It's pretty big. They dove underwater, but as with the other animals, the raft seemed to calm them down. Soon, they were playing all around me. They were playing and having fun. Grandma had been right about the mask and snorkel coming in handy. So we have a mask and snorkel. Can you say those words? Those are kind of hard. Mask, and snorkel. Snorkel. Yeah, good job. Good job. All right. I slipped them on, then hung my head over the raft and watched the otters play, chasing fish, chasing each other, sometimes just chasing their own tails. So they were running after things. I kept very still, but they didn't seem to mind me watching. They played keep away with a small stone, then tug of war with a piece of rope. It was like they were showing off for me. They even let me feed them right out of my hand. Isn't that cool? So there they are, the otter family. And it looks like they're chasing things. See, he's chasing the fish. Yeah, he's going after them. All right. Some mornings, Grandma would make a bag full of sandwiches and a thermos of icy lemonade. Then we'd put on our bathing suits, grab some towels, a lawn chair, and an inner tube, and pull upriver to her favorite swimming spot. The swimming spot. Yeah. "I've come swimming here since I was a girl," she told me as we tied the raft to the old dock. "The Marshalls used to live here. All 10 of them. 10 of them. What a herd of wild animals we were." While Grandma watched from the inner tube, I practiced my flying cannonballs. So there's Nicky. He's doing a flying cannonball, jumping into the water. Then we'd eat our lunch, and she'd tell me stories about growing up on the river. My favorite was the time she'd found a small black pearl inside a river clam. "I still have it," she said. There they are having fun. How do you think Grandma feels? She feel happy? Yeah, I think she feels happy. Looks like she might be singing. Somehow, on the river, it seemed like summer would never end. But, of course, it did. On my last day, I got up extra early and crept down to the dock. The air was cool, and a low, pearly fog hung over the river. I untied the raft and quietly drifted downstream. Ahead of me, through the fog, I saw 2 deer moving across the river, a doe and her fawn. So you have a doe and a fawn. Very pretty. When they reached the shore, the doe leaped easily onto the steep bank, then turned to wait for her baby. But the fawn was in trouble. It kept slipping down the muddy bank. Yeah, he slipped like that. The doe returned to the water to help it, but the more the fawn struggled, the deeper it got stuck in the mud. We have mud. He just kept getting stuck in the mud. See? So there goes the doe, and here's the baby fawn. And he's stuck. See what happens. I pushed off the river bottom and drove the raft hard into the muddy bank, startling the doe. Then I dropped into the water. I was ankle deep in the mud. "You're okay," I whispered to the fawn, praying that the raft would calm it. "I won't hurt you." Gradually, the fawn stopped struggling, as if it understood that I was there to help. I put my arms around it and pulled. It barely moved. I pulled again, and then again. Slowly, the fawn eased out of the mud, and finally, he was free. Carefully, I carried the fawn up the bank to its mother. So we returned the fawn back to its mother. See, there he is, carrying the fawn. Then, quietly, I returned to the raft. From there, I watched the doe nuzzle and clean her baby, and I knew what I had to do. I pulled the stub of crayon from my pocket and drew the fawn, in all its wildness, onto the old gray boards of the raft. When I had finished, I knew it was just right. There he is. He's drawing the fawn onto the raft. And can you see his face? How do you think he feels? Does he feel sad? No. What do you think? How does he feel? Happy. Yeah, I think he feels very happy. See his smile? That's good. After supper, I showed Grandma my drawing of the fawn and told her my story. "It's perfect," she said, "but we need to do one more thing." She hurried up to the cottage. When she came back, she had tubes of oil paint and 2 brushes. Grandma helped me trace my drawing with the oil paint, which soaked deep into the wood. "That'll keep it," she said. "Now you'll always be a part of the river." "Just like you, Grandma," I told her. A river rat. Grandma laughed. Just like me, she agreed. And there you go. Do you remember what this guy's called? It's the fawn. The little fawn. And that is the story of the raft.